The Bellagio was supposed to prove that Las Vegas had grown up. A $1.6 billion monument to elegance, precision, and five-diamond ambition. But today, behind the fountains and marble floors, something is rotting. Why are guests paying $62 in resort fees while finding dirty linens in their rooms? Why is a property valued at over $5 billion struggling with sewage smells and broken door handles? Who is really benefiting from this transformation? This is not just about one hotel declining. It is about how Wall Street engineering quietly replaced hospitality and how one of the most iconic resorts on the Strip became a symbol of extraction instead of excellence. Stay with me because the real story is far more unsettling than you think. When the Bellagio opened on October 15, 1998, it was the most expensive resort ever built. The price tag was staggering $1.6 billion, a figure meant to silence critics who still called Las Vegas tacky. This was not just another casino. It was Steve Wynn's declaration that the Strip could compete with the finest destinations in the world. The opening night alone cost $88 million. 15,000 guests walked through its doors, including Michael Jordan, Clint Eastwood, and George Lucas. The message was clear. Las Vegas was no longer just neon and slot machines. It was marble floors, hand-blown glass, and European-inspired refinement. The resort earned five-diamond status and recognition from the Forbes Travel Guide. It was presented as a turning point in the city's identity. The fountains became a global icon. The conservatory operated with an $8 million annual maintenance budget. Above the lobby, Dale Chihuly's glass sculpture stretched across the ceiling, weighing 40,000 pounds. Every detail communicated intention, precision, craft. The Bellagio was not designed as a revenue machine. It was built as an experience, a place where soaking tubs, attentive staff, and seamless service justified premium pricing. For years it worked. The Bellagio elevated the entire Strip. It set a standard others tried to follow, but that vision belonged to one man. And once he walked away, the foundation of that vision began to shift. Walk through those same doors today, and the contrast is jarring. The marble is still polished. The fountains still dance. But beneath the surface, the experience feels thinner, strained. Guests describe something that no renovation budget can easily hide. Recent reviews paint a picture that would have been unthinkable in 1998. Door handles falling off, room service taking forever for basic requests, long lines staffed by employees who appear overwhelmed, visitors paying $300 per night expecting five-star precision only to encounter indifference. Some complaints go further. Guests report sewage odors drifting through hallways and seeping into rooms. Showers described as full of iron rust, construction noise beginning at 7 a.m., disrupting sleep in what is marketed as a luxury retreat. These are not minor inconveniences. They signal maintenance strain in a property now more than 25 years old. One incident in July 2025 shocked even loyal patrons. A guest checking into their room discovered fake eyelashes on the pillow. Clear evidence the sheets had not been changed. That single detail traveled across review platforms. It became symbolic, not just a housekeeping error, but a breakdown in standards. Meanwhile, prices remain aggressive. Weekend rates can climb above $1,349, including fees, while weekday prices drop closer to $200. This volatility leaves guests confused and often resentful. For many, the Bellagio is still beautiful, but beauty alone cannot compensate for declining service consistency. The image remains grand. The experience increasingly does not. The real turning point did not happen in a guest room. It happened in a boardroom. In 2000, Steve Wynn sold his company to MGM Resorts International. The Bellagio was no longer the personal vision of a single developer. It became one assay among many in a growing corporate portfolio. That shift changed the incentive structure. A passion project became a line item. Performance was no longer measured only in prestige or awards. It was measured in quarterly returns. The Bellagio still carried its brand power, but the decision-making moved further away from the lobby and closer to shareholders. Then came 2019. sold the Bellagio's real estate to Blackstone Incorporated for $4.25 billion in a sale-leaseback deal. MGM would continue operating the resort, but now it would pay $245 million every year in rent. The building no longer belonged to the operator. It belonged to an investment firm focused on asset yield. This structure fundamentally altered the equation. Blackstone as landlord prioritized stable rent payments. MGM as operator had to generate enough cash flow to cover that enormous annual obligation. The pressure intensified. The Bellagio was no longer just competing with other luxury resorts. It was competing against its own fixed financial burden. When a property must deliver hundreds of millions in rent before profit even begins, something has to give. Often, it is not the marble or the fountains. It is the invisible layers of service staffing and maintenance that guests only notice when they fail. The ownership model did not immediately destroy the Bellagio's reputation, but it quietly changed its DNA. $245 million. That is what GM must pay every single year just to occupy the Bellagio, before staffing, before maintenance, before upgrades. The rent alone absorbs an enormous portion of operational breathing room. The $25 billion sale-leaseback in 2019 transformed the property into a financial instrument. Blackstone collects predictable rent. MGM carries the operational risk. The structure rewards stability in payments, not necessarily excellence in guest experience. Think about the math. If your fixed obligation is nearly $250 million annually, every department becomes a target for efficiency. Housekeeping hours are trimmed, maintenance schedules are stretched, staffing levels are optimized to the edge of tolerance. None of these decisions appear dramatic on paper, but collectively, they change the atmosphere of a hotel. Meanwhile, the asset value continues to rise. Blackstone Incorporated and Realty Income Corporation now control roughly 95% of a property valued at about $5.1 billion. The building's financial worth increases even as guests report sewage smells and construction noise. This is the paradox. The Bellagio is more valuable than ever as a real estate asset, yet the operational experience feels increasingly fragile. The rent must be paid, the shareholders must be satisfied, and somewhere in between the original promise of effortless luxury becomes negotiable. The machine runs smoothly on spreadsheets. On the casino floor and in the hallways, the strain is harder to hide. If the rent is the pressure, resort fees are the release valve. The Bellagio now charges $55 per night in resort fees, which becomes $62.36 after taxes. These fees are marketed as access to Wi-Fi and gym privileges, but in reality, they function as a pricing illusion. The advertised room rate appears lower. The real cost is revealed at checkout. This model is not accidental. It allows properties to compete in search results while preserving margins, but for guests it feels deceptive. What begins as a $200 weekday stay quickly climbs once mandatory fees are added. On peak weekends, rates exceeding $1,349, including fees, make planning unpredictable and emotionally exhausting. Industry data shows the broader pattern. From 2015 to 2025, average strip hotel rates rose from about $124 to roughly $210, nearly a 70% increase. That escalation did not occur alongside a proportional improvement in service quality. In many cases, guests report the opposite. The volatility is also strategic. Weekday rates dip low enough to attract volume. Weekend prices spike aggressively to maximize yield. The result is psychological whiplash. Guests feel manipulated rather than valued. Resort fees are only one layer. Dining costs rise. Parking fees spread across the strip. Every step inside the ecosystem carries incremental extraction. None of these charges individually destroy the experience, but together they reshape it. The Bellagio was once defined by seamless luxury. Now it operates within a framework where every amenity is monetized. Every square foot must justify itself financially. The emotional contract between guest and property grows thinner. Luxury becomes transactional. In September 2023, the pressure intensified overnight. MGMM resorts suffered a cyber attack orchestrated by the group known as Scattered Spider, using ALPHV, Black Cat ransomware. The breach did not require advanced espionage. Hackers located an employee on LinkedIn called the Help Desk, and within 10 minutes infiltrated the system of a $34 billion corporation operating under Nevada Gaming Control Board oversight. The damage was immediate. MGM reported approximately $100 million in losses. $84 million came from lost revenue. $10 million went to consulting expenses. During the system outage, the company was losing roughly $8.4 million per day. Casino floors reverted to manual processes. Digital room keys failed. Online reservations froze. The vulnerability was exposed publicly and painfully. For an operator already carrying a $245 million annual rent obligation at the Bellagio, this shock tightened the margins further. Recovery demanded capital. Investors demanded reassurance, and the most accessible lever remained the same: increase revenue, protect cash flow, higher prices, more aggressive fee structures, continued cost discipline behind the scenes. The cyber attack did not create the underlying strain, it amplified it, and the burden once again filtered down to the guest experience. The Bellagio's internal strain is unfolding against a broader industry slowdown. According to the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, January 2026, report visitor volume in 2025 dropped 8% compared to 2024. Some months recorded year-over-year declines of 11%. For the first half of 2025, visitation fell 7.3%, the steepest decline in years. Room occupancy slipped 2.1 percentage points to 78.9%. Average daily rates declined 5.5% to $185. $24. The Strip is no longer operating at the fever pitch many assumed would continue indefinitely. Like Disney World, Las Vegas appears to be pricing out the middle-class families and casual travelers who once formed its backbone. A family of four, facing a $500 per night hotel bill before dining shows or transportation, must reconsider. Sticker shock turns into hesitation. Hesitation becomes cancellation. At the same time, competition has intensified. Newer properties such as Resorts World, Las Vegas, and the Cosmopolitan offer fresh infrastructure and contemporary design. International destinations like Macau and Dubai continue evolving their luxury offerings. In this environment, the Bellagio cannot rely solely on legacy. It must justify its premium daily. And with visitation softening, every empty room magnifies the pressure to extract more from those who still arrive. The cycle tightens. Fewer guests, higher expectations, greater financial strain. Nothing captures the contradiction more clearly than the Bellagio fountains. For decades, they have been the emotional centerpiece of the Strip. Choreographed water music and light projecting confidence to millions standing along Las Vegas Boulevard. Yet even this symbol faces disruption. Formula One grandstand construction now blocks views of the fountains for nearly 3 months each year. One of the most iconic attractions in American hospitality becomes partially obscured in the name of event revenue. Inside renovation investments totaling more than $275 million since 2011 were meant to modernize the property. $70 million for the main tower, $40 million for the spa tower, another $110 million for upgrades. On paper, it sounds transformative, but many guests describe something colder. Minimalist rooms replacing the Italian-inspired warmth. Large soaking tubs removed. Furniture reduced. A contemporary aesthetic that feels less intimate, less indulgent. The asset is financially stronger than ever. The symbol remains globally recognized, yet the lived experience feels diminished. The Bellagio still looks like luxury. It no longer consistently feels like it. The Bellagio's decline is not simply about aging infrastructure or temporary tourism softness. It reflects a deeper structural tension inside modern corporate hospitality. When a property becomes a financial instrument first and a destination second, priorities shift quietly but decisively. Wall Street engineering rewards predictable cash flow. Sale leasebacks, asset appreciation, and rent obligations create measurable performance metrics. What cannot be measured as easily is atmosphere, attention to detail, the feeling of being valued rather than processed. Under this model, excellence becomes expensive. Staffing at generous levels reduces margins. Proactive maintenance competes with quarterly earnings targets. Investments must justify themselves not only in prestige, but in measurable return. The Bellagio now exists within a framework where real estate valuation climbs to $5.1 billion, while guests report broken fixtures and inconsistent service. The spreadsheet reflects strength. The hallway tells another story. This is the collision between financial optimization and experiential expectation, and the gap between those two realities continues to widen. The Bellagio was once proof that Las Vegas could transcend its past, a $1.6 billion statement that craftsmanship and ambition could redefine an entire city. Today, it stands as something else, a case study in how financial engineering can slowly erode experiential excellence. The fountains still rise, the glass ceiling still glows, the valuation still climbs. But beneath the surface, guests describe broken fixtures, rising fees, and fading standards. A property worth over $5 billion should not feel fragile. The Bellagio story is not just about one hotel. It is about what happens when shareholder optimization overtakes hospitality philosophy. When rent obligations and quarterly targets quietly reshape what luxury means. Have you noticed the change? And if this is the future of corporate resorts, what does that mean for the rest of the Strip?